Well, we're just excited now. So it's just turned just past 2. We're so excited to be here. Thank you for joining us. We have one person joined us right on the dot. We are going to be talking today about salary negotiation. I am so excited to have 2 recruiters with me because, I'm a resume writer. I recruited a little bit, 7, 8 years ago. But when anyone looking for a job hears a recruiter say something, it's really carries so much more weight, as it should, because you all are the ones that are there talking to the employers, possibly negotiating with the clients, between the candidate and the employers. And I'm just curious to start talking about this as we're waiting for a few more people, and I'm pinging some people excuse me, right now too. So, Tina, do you negotiate the salary? I think you told me that you negotiate the salary and everything when you're during the candidate hiring process.
So as a headhunter, I get the salary bracket. So I have to find candidates that fit within the salary bracket so that they are not too low, that they don't earn much less, and that they are not outside the salary bracket, because it still needs to be interesting for them. Nobody would change jobs, take risks, if they will earn less in the future. That just doesn't happen. So I have to make sure already in the first conversation that we are aligned, that the job is the seniority is aligned with the expectations of the candidate and mine, so that we don't waste anyone's time. So that when they end up having 4 interviews and get to the negotiation table, that the offer is not what they were hoping for. So to avoid that, we already talk about very much in the beginning.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that explanation. People think that sometimes people think there's some kind of you know, um, something that recruiters are trying to think of, some kind of cruel reason to be asking about salary when, you have the range. So you want to make sure that any candidates are in that range. So I'm assuming that's of course the same with you, Mary.
Yeah, well, when I was working more as an independent recruiter on searches like Tina's, yeah, I mean, she explained it perfectly that you typically recruit candidates in terms of the requirements, from what your client is giving. And, they have a salary range. And so that's part of the vetting. When you're finding talent in the market, making sure that it also aligns within the salary expectations. I would say it's a little different if you are an in-house recruiter for an organization. Certainly we're always looking, of course, for people to be in that salary range that's desirable, as well. But I think, yeah, I mean, we're looking for that, but it's similar to other recruiters like Tina and others. I mean, the other values and other interests have to align. Um, I know that when I am recruiting people and we get to the question of salary expectations, I'll ask, and if I know it's within the range, that's fine. But sometimes you'll come across candidates that might be looking for something a little bit more than the range, or there's something outside of the range. And it's interesting because depending on just their background and qualifications and their attitude about why they're wanting to move, I'm always kind of trying to get more information to see if there's flexibility, if it's not just about salary, if there's other things that excite them, if the opportunity was really good. But yeah, I mean, I would agree fully with what Tina said as well.
Well, thank you. So we have a couple people here. I just want to let you know if you'd like to come up, if you are looking for a job right now and you are wondering about, how to negotiate salary, what you might say, what is negotiable, please do come up and join us on the stage. The three of us know each other. We can talk about this all day long, but we are really here to answer your questions. And in the room description, I put something from a Robert Half survey that I read recently that said 36% of employers who responded to their survey said they were likely to negotiate starting salary. And, I've spoken with recruiters, personally, I know quite a few. And the majority of them tell me the same thing, that, they are open to negotiating. But I also hear, and I've read, I don't have a statistic, but I've read that hardly anybody actually tries to negotiate the salary. I know I was guilty of that many times in my career. I'd get offered the job and I'd say, okay. And I didn't even bother to try. So, first off, Mary, if you want to start this, the first off is, if recruiters are willing to negotiate, how many people do, and should they? And again, if you're in the audience, please come up and join us. We're very, very friendly crowd.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think people don't negotiate. I mean, similar to that survey and the finding and what we're all feeling. Um, I feel that though there's more education out there, be it, social media and articles online, that people are trying to integrate that into their process when they get a job offer. Um, I think it's always good practice. One thing to keep in mind is if you are given a job offer, get the salary right the first time. And I know that a lot of clients or people are willing to put up with companies saying, oh, well, we'll review it in a little bit or 6 months later, but we'll start you out at this. Ideally, you really only get one shot to get it really right. And you should do it at the beginning because it's a lot easier to get your numbers, your desired range numbers, situation accounted for in the beginning rather than to change it later on. So I would say that most people, they might be hesitant to ask for more, because I mean, I don't know, it's a different kind of belief system, I think, depending on how you were taught to look for and evaluate job offers. But I really do believe, it's within your own right and you're doing yourself a favor to ask for more all the time, especially in the beginning. So I don't know, Tiina, do you have any thoughts on?
Well, I think, like you said, it's cultural, and also I see it's very typical for women not even to enter into negotiations, just say thank you, not even trying. So I think the biggest mistake that you can do when you're negotiating is that you don't negotiate at all. And just a little reminder, what is the salary? Because it's not only the salary, it's the salary package. So I'm talking about the Belgian example. So you have your base salary, then you have your bonus, your annual bonus. Normally in Belgium, when you are on a manager level, you get a company car because of the tax reasons. It's more interesting to have a company car. You get a fuel card, either a national or for the whole Europe. You get a laptop, you get a smartphone, you get meal vouchers or restaurant tickets, you get hospitalization insurance, you get pension plan, so health insurance, representation fee or net allowance so that you can go to restaurants, you can get internet paid at home. We have something that's called environmental voucher for 250 euros per year that you can, those small things add up. On top of that, holidays. you have 21 legal holidays, but when you work in the oil and gas sector, it's very common that you have 40 holidays per year. So that adds up really, and there you can have your priorities. What is more important to you? And choose a company accordingly. So come with the whole package. Maybe you can't get your salary higher that you wanted, but adding all those small details, it really adds up to a big amount if you look at the details.
You know, I'm so glad. First of all, I have to say, my goodness, I wish I was living there, because we don't. Most people don't get that, all of those added benefits here in the U.S. But they are negotiable. And the thing is that I always advise clients that I work with the same thing, that you may not get the salary, but on the other hand, there may be other benefits that you will get. Paid time off, or maybe you can negotiate, flexible schedule, maybe stay, keeping working from home, even though the company employees are mostly moving back to the office, etc. But then I have to tell you, I read this morning. I was looking up some information before our room, and it was a SHRM, had somebody do a survey, and they said that 90% of employers who responded, it was a 2021 hiring survey, said they were flexible about negotiating salary, at least for some positions. However, I was surprised to see only 42% said that they would negotiate bonuses, and only 32% said they would negotiate benefits. So, what's your kind of take on that? Let's start with you, Mary, because you're here in the U.S. with me, and the survey was done here. And then Tiina, let me know what you think about.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting survey and the findings. I would say that in hearing it, it doesn't surprise me in the sense that the salary piece is really the most negotiable, because the other things, bonuses and benefits for a lot of larger organizations, they're set in place, to be the standard for everyone for the most part, based off of like your grade level or the position that you're in. Like, it's going to be the same for everyone. So that, I think if you negotiate other aspects, it might be a little tricky. But the salary piece is really designed to be more custom, I think, to the individual. As most people in the States, and anyway, with salaries, a lot of times there's specified ranges, and companies, they make an offer based off of whatever calculation they have internally. It's the first number. Is it the end number? Is it the only number? Typically, it's not. So I really feel that, yeah, when you get an offer, it's great, but you should always try to ask for more, because you can, and certainly a lot of people do. And like I was saying earlier, getting it right in the beginning is a lot easier than trying to follow up on something that was in conversation that, later on, 6 months down the line or a year later. So, so that's what I think.
Yeah, I've heard that too, and I love that point about, don't put it off and wait until later. And my understanding too, and it was this way with the couple of years that I was recruiting, that if you had the salary range, that it was the people who really had, most, if not all, of the things the client was looking for would get the that top end. And if you only had maybe 60%, that you might want to apply anyway, but it was unlikely, if you were offered the position, that you would actually get the high range of the salary range. Is that true, Tiina?
Yes, so I get the salary range from the company, and then I do market research. So sometimes the salary is not corresponding to the reality, what they are offering for the specific position in that country. When I start contacting candidates, their salaries are much higher, for example, and then I go back to my client and say, this is what reality looks like. You either change the salary bracket, or we need to lower the qualifications and skills. So it needs to be aligned with the market range. So the salary bracket, let's say it's from 84 to 104K. So depending on if you're a junior person, let's say depending on how many years you have worked, and a more senior person who has much more work experience and seniority. So that's where the range is. And I think it's so important that the job seekers would also ask questions instead of taking salary negotiations or interviews like interrogations. It's not. You also have the right. Sometimes I'm not allowed to give the salary range, exact salary range, but I can at least give you feedback if your current salary is within the range. So always be proactive with your questions. Don't just wait, because what happens is that you miss out on negotiations if you don't ask.
No, that's great. That's such an important point. So if I'm asked, if I'm looking for a job and a recruiter asks me about my salary expectations, I might say, well, I'm looking for a salary between, 80,000 and 100,000. Is that is that aligned with your salary range? Is that how I should ask them, Tiina, and find out? Maybe I'll get some feedback.
Or you could say my current salary is 92K, and I'm expecting 10 to 15% increase. And I wouldn't necessarily lie about the salary, because for example, here in Belgium, when you change companies, your holidays are based on previous years. So there is some information that's transferred from one company to another. So I would also be very transparent about it. I don't know how it works
Yeah.
in the US, if there is the same transparency, because you can't just say, oh, I would like to have 100K if your current salary is 50. So you have to be realistic as well. How big of a jump,
Well,
if you're ready to do that.
Well, I will say that's one thing that I would say that it's easier here, and I'm going to let Mary jump in because we don't generally say, well, this is my salary, and there are quite a few states. I forget the number. I think it's 30 something percent. I forget the number of states where now they actually have salary bands, so a recruiter is not allowed to even ask them their salary, what it is. And I'm going to let Mary jump in and then pass the mic over to Claudia.
Yeah, I mean, just to follow up on that, yeah, I think I don't know the exact number of states. It's like 37 or 38 states within the US where you cannot ask about previous salary history. You can ask expectations. And then, furthermore, from that, there are some states where it is required that salary ranges are shared publicly. So, usually, but I mean, to your point, Tiina, yes. I mean, I think that you shouldn't lie about salaries. I mean, but certainly in the context of expectations, I know just on the receiving end of things, you ask, for clients on behalf, like, what is your salary expectation? And it's usually a dance, right? Back and forth, like, well, I don't know about the range. Tell me more about it. Can you share it? That's usually the question that's directed back to me. And I'm like, well, I mean, and I usually do share general ranges. I mean, nothing specific because it's not, I don't make the final compensation decision. It's a long process of that. What quite ends up happening is that the information I share it may not always be helpful because the range is either extremely big, like a 50K swing in the range. And, also I share information of how we do calculate salary and how we arrive at it, that it's much more than just, X number of years and such, but it's also regionally. We benchmark against, people doing that same role. We factor in similarly minded competitor like industries. So if you're, in the private sector, at least like the clients I work with, I know we're looking at data that's specific to that and not really outside of that. There's a lot of different factors. So it's a dialogue. It's not really one conversation. I know that, yeah, I mean, that's where I'll just stop. Sorry. Thanks.
No, one of the things that I love, and you have both said that it needs to be a conversation. When a candidate goes into the job, the job interview process, it's not just, the employer asking them questions and them responding. They need to have questions too. They need to have, a back and forth dialogue. It's really should be more like, I don't know, maybe having a first date than, being in an interrogation. So that's kind of the way I think about it. So Claudia, thank you for joining us on the stage. I see that you are a career and life coach. Did you have a question or something that you just wanted to add to our
Both, actually, yes. And let me thank you so much, Annette, for the permission to add me to the stage, as well as just really to give everyone a little bit of a background that, yes, I am a career and life coach. I also bring over 15 years of experience in both recruitment, employee relations, and in talent management. And so this is always such a hot topic. I absolutely love talking about this. Mary, I think, did a great job covering it from a US perspective. Tiina, I know that in the EU, there's sometimes a lot more transparency involved in the different, countries. And depending on what country, there's different laws in place for gender pay equity that we don't really have just yet in the US. And so to just, kind of plus one what Mary was saying is that we would never encourage a candidate on the US side to share what they're currently earning. We would just ask them to share their career or their salary, I should say, expectations. Though I do have a question for all of you, and hope that maybe you can help me, because what I'm finding is that, I help a lot of, clients when they're trying to go into, different roles, different jobs, interviewing, how they can show up as their best selves. The salary piece, the negotiation is fine. Where I am curious to know is when you get to the director and the executive level compensation, those ranges are super large, super broad, because they usually entail base, variable pay, bonus, RSUs, and such. Is there so for those types of like clients or even friends, I can't say go to Glassdoor or go to LinkedIn for salary data, because it's kind of all over the board depending on the philosophy of the organization. Is there a source for executive comp that you find to be pretty, like, a really good guide to help others when they start the salary negotiation process? And I agree with you, Mary, the salary negotiation starts right at the very first conversation with the recruiter, when you're setting those salary expectations. And then, obviously you move from there. But I was wondering if any of you have good data, whether it's through a search firm or what have you, that would be specific to exec comp.
Well, I'm going to let the recruiters answer that, because I have a couple of ideas, but who wants to jump in first, Mary or Tiina? Everybody's so polite. Nobody wants.
Oh,
Go
I was
ahead,
going to say,
Mary.
Tiina, do you want to take it? But I'll
No.
just share some thoughts. Yeah, I mean that's a great question, Claudia. From what I know, and I'm happy to be corrected on this. I don't necessarily. I mean, I share your same idea. Like, I'm not aware of a single like resource go-to place for executive comp. As you know, a lot of these things are very secretive, especially at that level. So usually when I work with candidates that are of that level, I mean, the best ways I think in terms of gathering the intelligence is really how these jobs are found anyways, typically through headhunter recruiters and also within your network at that level. And I mean, it requires a lot of networking, a lot of informational trust, dialogue about it, and really coming up with your own due diligence of collecting that information. But from what I understand, it's not necessarily, I mean, I think they might do white papers here and there once a year with a lot of the top consulting firms, but I mean, it's helpful, but it's incredibly generic. So I know that when I've been asked for advice, I mean, I personally think that everyone should befriend a recruiter, and I think I'm kind of biased about that, but I think really truly, there are really strong and collaborative third-party recruiters that have that information. And if it is a relationship that you have with these recruiters, pick their brain. What do they see in the market at that level? Test it with that individual, because to be quite honest, like, that's their job. They're not going to judge you or think, oh, that's way too high or that's way too low. They'll give you, their take. And I mean, certainly ask more than one person, but that's my 2 cents about it.
Thank you, thank you, Tina. So what are your thoughts?
I also think that this is not something that you will find through a Google search. It's really different level, and those conversations take place between two people. And for me, I'm so used to asking people about their salary and knowing what is the salary range. So I feel like a doctor, like I see everything but I don't tell anyone. So yeah, have those conversations with the headhunter. And another good thing when you are going through these salary negotiations and when you're working with a headhunter, sometimes we can help with that part as well. So because when you start going back and forth too much, sometimes it will kind of infect the relationship with the new employer. But if it's done with a third party, it will be more neutral, and you can ask for advice. Am I asking something that's just outside the range, or is it still negotiable? Do they have space to have this conversation? So I think you need to have the conversations, and I think it already starts when you connect or contact Annette, when you're writing your CV. Like, you should have the numbers on your CV, how much value you were able to bring to your current employer, how much cost savings or whatever you did. So it's easier when you're at the negotiation table to refer back how much money you will actually bring in. So it's an investment for the company, not only a.
That's
Yeah,
so great. Sorry. And
no, I was just gonna say, thank you for mentioning that. And that's one of the things people like me tell the clients that we work with, and pretty much anyone else who will listen, is that you have to demonstrate on your resume or your CV the value that you bring. And that's in terms of numbers, not fluffy words like dramatically, successfully, but you have to have those numbers. So go ahead, Claudia. What were you?
oh, perfect. Thank you so much, Annette. And I 100% agree with you, Tina. And that's definitely what I instruct my clients on when we're at that stage of really helping them, structure their resume and really like put their best foot forward in order to get to the conversation stage with the recruiter. So what it sounds like is I'm accustomed to obviously being able to do this quite comfortably on my own behalf with headhunters that I have relationships with. But as someone who now is doing the career coaching piece, um, I'm just trying to wrap my brain about, do I just, recommend a few headhunters that I know and have my, let's say, clients do that type of research, and encourage them to build those relationships and that network. Because of course, the headhunters are going to vary based on industry. It's going to be based on, roles and jobs and such. But there are some, a few large players and some small niche headhunters that I do have contacts with, and I'm happy to share with them. But what's your thoughts about sending people directly, to, let's say, you as recruiters, to start building those relationships when they're ready to make those moves?
I think it's a good idea, especially if it's local recruiters who work in the same area, in the same industry. Then it's very interesting to build these long-term relationships, because maybe they don't have the job description on their desk right now, but they could call back the candidate for sourcing in the industry. So it's really a marathon. It doesn't happen often that I am with them in contact for the first time and they get the job for the first time. I often contact them several times. So, and I work with similar positions. So I think those you should encourage to build those relationships and not have like give me a job attitude, but really that they would value the relationship as well, and start by giving, and I don't know, inviting for coffee or doing something different instead of going like, help me. I think that's a good approach.
Agreed.
Yeah, I
Go
would
ahead,
agree
Mary.
too. I mean, I would just say, I would just share my take on this too. I mean, certainly make introductions, but I mean, really, this is where the work is, right? Too. I mean, it's not just all by you and your recommendation, and of course, offering the advice and support, but like they also need to carve out those relationships and contact people directly. I would even say people who are in those roles, like at similar organizations, even just doing informational interviews or looking to connect. That would be something that I encourage people to do if they're looking out for their own career development. But absolutely 100% what Tiina says. It's not just about a transactional moment in time. People will share these details or be willing to share some insight if a relationship is there. So, they'd have to reach out and build on that. And it's much more of a dialogue.
Totally agree. Thank you so much.
There's just one thing I'd like to add, and I see a couple people I know down there in the audience. So please do come up and join us. I never call anyone by name. I don't want to embarrass them, but please do come up and join us, join our conversation if you have any questions or comments. But one thing that came to mind for me is, this is also one of the reasons why it's so important to have those sponsors, in our career. A mentor who is going to help guide you along is great, but a sponsor who is actually going to be your cheerleader and help you move forward is someone that, I guess both of them would really be able to give you advice if they're in that industry, as far as what the going salaries are. I mean, would you agree, recruiters?
Yeah, that's good advice, Annette. I mean, I tell that to people all the time too, just, yeah, people who are in those roles that you're wanting to be, and if they're your mentor, like getting their take. I'm a believer that you should ask a few people and not just one person and be like, so you can make a decision for yourself that's informed from a few different
I think people are not reaching out and asking enough. Of course, you can get a no, but if you don't ask, you won't get any answers either. And I think one of the best tips for negotiations is to have several options. So first thing, I would advise you to stay in your current job if you have one when you start looking for other jobs, and then go through several processes with different companies, so you can in the end get several attractive job offers that you can choose from, and that also gives opportunity. Or I always ask candidates, are you in different processes at the moment? Then you have the timeline, because sometimes companies, they want to compare candidates, and if they know that you're engaged in other processes at the same time, they know that there is deadline and it doesn't take too long. So be proactive and just don't wait for one job offer. Find out what is there and compare.
I love that you brought that up, and of course it's always great, and if people see, my dogs agree with me, and when someone is lucky enough to get two job offers, the idea of sitting down and actually comparing them, I think is so important to do. And I know many people go back to the old pros and cons, but I think it's perhaps more effective to list the criteria that you have. What is most important to you right now? Is it the salary? If you're early in your career, it might be professional development where you can get your degree on the company's dime. If you're further on in your career, then it might be more about the salary. And so do you find that there is a difference depending on where people are in their careers, what they maybe should be looking for in terms when they're doing the negotiating? Mary?
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's something that doesn't ever go away, and there's not one answer or one thing that certain people at a certain point in their careers are looking versus others. I mean, it's an important thing, like what motivates you and what will keep you happy as you're progressing along this journey for your careers and advancement. I mean, certainly you can't ignore salary at all. I mean, that's a component of it, like very important one at that. But yeah, I think just to kind of relate that back to some of the themes we've talked about, um, knowing what is ideal for you in your advancement, like what is important to you, like where do you want to be? Salary is one, but what else? And really taking stock of what is the most important and making sure that that's given quite a bit of attention is important. But I think it's important to survey every so often if you feel like you need a change, like what is important to me now. And I mean, I know that for me personally, that's even just changed. I think earlier in my career, of course, you want to make money as you're progressing and learning stuff, but at the same time, it's like the work that you're doing. Other people, it might be the formal traditional trajectory of title gathering and like advancing to a director and advancing to a VP and advancing. But for other people, it's not. So where salary falls within that conversation, I mean, I think it's good to always take stock of that every few years or every so often.
Yeah, I love what you said about that, because I was just trying to find it. I was unable to pull it up, but I read something in the last 6 months that a lot of people, the reason that they leave their job is because they don't see advancement, they don't see opportunity. And I actually find that with the clients that I work with, and potential clients that I speak with every week, is that they want to leave because there is no advancement. Is that something that they can really ask about during that interview process and really get data on, what the company does offer?
I think that's one of the carrots when I talk to candidates. I tell them I'm not just offering you a new job, it's a career, because I work with multinationals, and the hiring manager, I encourage them to have a look at their LinkedIn profile, how long they have stayed in the company, which are the different job titles they had, so they can see that they have advanced every 2-3 years. They have a new position, so there are so many growth opportunities. So of course you need to have a good salary as well, but if you work for a smaller organization and there is just one person in the marketing department and that's you might have a great salary, but that's really the ceiling. So what I often tell to candidates is that if you don't change organizations, if you stay too long in the same organization, your salary, you will not advance as well as other people who change organizations from time to time, because you take risks. If you leave the organization, if you stay in the same organization and get promotions, your salary will never be the same, because everyone knows you and you don't have to prove yourself. You don't take the same risks. So I see often that people who have worked 13 years in the same organization, they don't have the same salary level as other people on with same years of experience. So and you can't require your employer pay that as well. I think it's your responsibility to be proactive with your career and take those risks if you want a higher salary.
Yeah, I love that you said that, and it's so interesting. I was just listening to a LinkedIn Live. Mark Anthony Dyson, he was doing a LinkedIn Live, and he and Jack Kelly and their guests were talking about that. And that's one of the things they were saying, that when you do change jobs, you are and move up, changing jobs, going to different companies. That is the best way if you're really interested in increasing your salary. So it's interesting. They were just talking about that earlier today. Do you agree with that, Mary?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think there will always be the outlier situation at a company where someone just gets these huge jumps in pay, but I think that's very infrequent. But I think the most common way that people, um, really add to their earning potential via the way of salary is by new opportunities, and a lot of times it is outside of their organization. So, I mean, I would agree with what Tiina suggested, but yeah, I mean, I believe that's true.
So I guess it's kind of a trade-off. And as I said, I would say 30 to 50% of the clients that I work with, they are wanting, more advancement. Not they have feel like they've reached the spot where there's just no place else for them to go, and so they want to make a change to another company. Claudia, do you find that as well with the clients that you work with?
In terms of
Changing
if they stay in a company,
changing
yeah, if they
jobs because they're looking for advancement, and that's why they want to leave.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's interesting because what I have seen a lot of times is, and then I'm putting my HR hat on right now, is that our top performers at an organization get frustrated. So if they are not getting the recognition through a promotion or both either in title or in salary, and they have to wait too long for it because the bureaucracy of some companies can be quite make it a really lengthy process. They will get frustrated and they will leave. And what's interesting about this is, well, as we all know, right now it's a candidate market, right? So lots of organizations out there are being a lot more willing to take a chance on a candidate that may not have had, let's say, that experience working at that higher level. Like, for example, let me say it this way. Like, let's say there's a manager role, or excuse me, a director role, and the position, the person, the candidate is a manager. I swear I speak English. The candidate is a manager and they're applying for director role. A lot of hiring managers will say, well, they haven't operated at this higher level. Well, there's a lot more flexibility now because the candidate pool is a lot more competitive right now. And so because it is a candidate market, some of the first choice, second choice candidates that a manager would have loved to have selected, sometimes they have to go down to the third level candidate only because they weren't fast enough, because the candidates are already interviewing at other organizations and they may be a little bit later in the process. And so, you know, I would say this is definitely the time to change jobs. And I encourage people, if they do feel stagnant and they feel like, okay, I'm not progressing, this is actually a really good time to do that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm giving last call to anyone in the audience who'd like to come up and join us. I am going to be turning off the hand raising, and thank you, Tiina, for giving us these great articles at the, pinned up here at the top of the room. I just want to, I'm not saying pushing back, but, I hear both sides of the story. I hear that, yes, employers are struggling to find people. I hear that from recruiters. And I know from the clients I work with that top talent, it's always easier for them to find a job, if they are the top talent. But on the other hand, I also find that now that things have opened up, that uh, the people who have been not really looking, they're kind of, if a recruiter approaches them and says, oh, I have this great position, they would consider moving. But you know now that the economy is picked up, they are becoming active candidates. So while that's sort of the other part of that, that these passively looking, open but not really active, are now actively looking, and so that kind of increases the pool as well. So I'm curious to hear what the recruiters say in response to Claudia's thoughts and mine, before we welcome Liddy to the stage.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that you were saying for someone else to
Yes,
talk. I don't know you were saying
yes, I
me.
am. I'm asking Mary and Tina what they think about Claudia's statements and mine, and then I'm going to invite you to speak.
Just real quick, I mean, I would say that, yeah, I mean, there's more, I think people are more willing to make changes, or at least see what is out there in the market. I know myself, yesterday, most of my day was filled with candidates that are, I would definitely say they're passive, but they're kind of curious now to see what is out there because it's been a little while. Um, I mean, it does add more people, of course, looking. I think one thing that Claudia said that's interesting. I mean, yeah, absolutely, that there are employers that are not necessarily getting their first choice candidate. They have to go down the line to their second or third. I mean, I would say that employers, for sure, they have to be on their game. I know that some clients that I work with, they remain to be picky, even though it is still hard to get people. They're wanting to really just not go to a second or third candidate. They want to like really get the top. But my particular clients can do that, but not. I would say that that's not. Um, common for most employers, but the onus is totally on the companies now to like really move to get the talent that they want and not just settle for, you know, second, third, or whoever else. But
Thank you. Tiina, do you have anything to add before I turn the mic to Liddy?
I also agree that times have changed, and but also to candidates, it's only the people who apply who get the jobs. So if you look at the job description and you don't fulfill all 10 criteria that's listed, specifically for women who apply for jobs, and you think I'm not a good fit, most of the times the job description, it's the criteria is there to find the ideal candidate who doesn't exist. I see that so often with new positions where we don't even know what kind of talent exists out there. So if you don't apply, you won't get the job. So if you think you would be a good fit and you would like to do the job, please apply.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Liddy, thank you for joining us up here on the stage. Do you have a question?
Not necessarily a question, but I'll ask anyway. So when it comes to now we're in the remote environment and a lot of people are wanting to work remotely. Just a little bit about myself. So I am a professional recruiter. I've been recruiting for the past 7 years, currently in the public health space. Majority of the jobs that I recruit for are remote. I'm also a career coach as well with Pearson Workforce Solutions. That's my company. And have been helping people find jobs, whether it's transitioning from state to state, which I've done myself, or industry to industry, which I've also done. So I will ask this as a question to see what you guys perspective is on there. But when working remotely and trying to negotiate your salary, sometimes that is very limited. What is your perspective on particular positions for that?
Mary, Tiina, would either of you care to respond for?
wait, so Liddy, I'm sorry, I just want to clarify. So what's my take on like how many remote roles are out there, or is it just that whether like if a person is made an offer for a role and salary is not there, but you know, or asking if they can keep it remote. I'm sorry, I'm just really not understanding what aspect that you're asking about.
Yeah, so working remotely in salary negotiations, sometimes that can be a little limited. So, what is your take on negotiating salary in a remote role?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I too work with clients primarily that like all the roles are work from home. So, and you know, so like that's it's not necessarily used as like a bargaining chip, if you will, if salary isn't where you'd like it to be. But I would say, I think we had talked about it a little bit earlier in the hour that when people evaluate what kind of opportunities they want next, certainly salary is a big part of that. But it's more than just the money, right? It's feeling fulfilled, working on really cool things, cool with cool people, advancing your career. So I think that if one aspect of what you're looking for in your next opportunity is slightly lower and they can't seem to budge that, you might want to evaluate and look at these other things that are really important to you and stress that, I'm interested, but this isn't going to work. You're going to need to improve, this benefit or that benefit. Is that possible? And then maybe I'll, consider coming on board, and certainly working from home. If that availability is present and that's something that an employer can accommodate, then yeah, absolutely. I would say that people are using that more in lieu of money. But I would always say go for the money first, like, and then and try to get everything that you want personally if you can.
Thank you, Mary. Tiina, do you have anything to add? Because we're just about winding down here.
Yes, I would say that remote work, you really have to define what is remote work. So, remote in the same country, or remote the same continent, or remote anywhere in the world. So, do you have to follow the office hours, or can you travel anywhere? So, I have recruited for a remote position, but somebody who would be based in Western Europe. So, and there are different salaries in different countries, and salary ranges as well. So, remote is such a broad title. So, you really need to see what are the benefits. If you just can work in the same city remotely, or what are the benefits. So, that's a really, for some people, it's really their ideal job that needs to be remote. For others, it's not that important. So really, have clarity what is the most important for you, and go after that, because I think that's the only way to find it.
Thank you. So I hope that gave you, some answers on that, Liddy.
Yes, thank you for sharing. Uh, I definitely do think that, especially in certain positions now, with the type of environment that we're living in, you can't have all your, all the cake and eat it too. So you have to negotiate a little bit. And sometimes if you're going to be able to work remotely and they provide all the equipment, maybe it's okay not to have the extra $5,000 or whatever on your salary, because you're also benefiting from other things.
Yep.
So definitely, I thank you guys for your comment.
Great, great. Thank you, and thank you for bringing up that topic. It was a great way to kind of finish off our room today. So, thank you so much to everyone in the audience. We're so happy that you're here with us. My dogs are excited as well, and. I just like to say, please do follow Mary and Tiina, because they are both, smart, generous recruiters, generous with their knowledge. They moderate with me, but they also moderate in other places. So please do follow them. If you've learned something new here, please follow the club. So, Mary, do you want to share? Is there anything you're doing in the next, week or so that you'd like to share? And how can we
Yeah.
connect with you on?
Yeah, so yeah, thanks for that, Annette. Yeah, I love connecting with people on LinkedIn, certainly also on Clubhouse. I'm not doing anything next week, thank goodness, except for hopefully enjoying the holiday. And for those of you who do celebrate Thanksgiving, wishing you all, a relaxing time if you have it, and, good holiday.
And Tiina, I know you've got some other stuff going on.
Yes, it's we don't celebrate Thanksgiving here, so it's business as usual. So a couple of Clubhouse rooms, a LinkedIn Live next Friday when everyone is celebrating Thanksgiving. So yeah, if you're in Europe, follow me on LinkedIn, and let's continue the conversation there.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you also, Claudia, for joining us on the stage and sharing your insight and adding to our conversation. We appreciate it. So yes, we are not doing any rooms in this club next week, but we will be back talking about LinkedIn engagement on December 1st. Tiina will be joining me that day. And I'm putting together something on, job searching during the holidays for December 2nd. So please do come back and join us. If you celebrate Thanksgiving, have a wonderful, relaxing time. Don't work, at least don't work too much over the holiday. Thank you so much for being here, and have a great rest of your day. Saying goodbye in 3, 2, 1. Bye now.